Vestige, the book by the group known as War Campaign, swings for the fences in their initial offering. Yet another comic coming out of what was formerly known as Comicsgate, and without a cape in sight, we travel to Victorian-era London, or England, or wherever it may be, for a tale of swords, souls, and treachery. The book is 48 pages long and features the drawing talent of Donald DeLay, words put together by Got Hanzo, and editing by Steve Dye. The story starts with a dock worker down on his luck and scraping by to make ends meet, and the occasional pint at the bar. When one day, before work, he comes across a mysterious woman who starts singing. Through some mysterious lyrics and embarrassment from the dock worker, he's led to claim a magical knife. Immediately on the next page, a shadowy figure shows up to kill a woman with said knife. If you are guessing that this is Jack the Ripper, congratulations. You found the one book in Comicsgate that wanted to talk to you about Jack the Ripper. Not usually a subject for American comics, but notable nonetheless. I'll get back to this towards the end of the synopsis. Almost immediately we delve deeper into the psyche of the dock worker and see that the knife is an artifact. One of many we find out on the best part of the book, the splash page and seeming mission statement of the book, and soon to be larger universe describing numerous weapons used throughout time and their wielder. This is probably the highlight of the book and offers numerous avenues to go down in future issues. It's a big idea and a big opportunity should they pursue it with all the usual comic book tropes and action sequences that could follow. It's a fun idea and not usually one done in American comics. Unfortunately, this is perhaps the best part of the whole experience. We travel to the Wild West in America with a woman who is tracking down another artifact. I don't remember what her name is, and that's fitting as she's not particularly memorable. It's established that while these artifacts are powerful, it takes exceptional individuals to wield them properly. She easily dispatches a sword wielder with her rifle to make the point. Turns out she works for an organization who tracks these weapons down for a presumably larger purpose, and she's dispatched to London shortly thereafter. Where else would she go to? We start out the story in Victorian-era London with the magical knife. Flash page, I referred to earlier, could send her anywhere in search of these magic weapons. But since this is a 48-page first issue, the range is slightly more limited. She arrives in London as the dock worker is now having a full-blown conversation with the knife. A knife who's lettered in Goosebumps font, complete with dripping blood. For effect. The dock worker is confronted for talking to himself and encounters a group of ruffians who want the knife. The red shirts serving as target practice for our Wild West girl. The only character development she's had up to this point is that she doesn't like Annie Oakley. She doesn't like that she's more popular than her. It's an attempt at character development, but as we'll see towards the end of the book, it's to little effect. The action sequence here is small, and the art is confused. The gun doesn't point at a single bad guy as they go down. I can only assume the bullets come out of a barrel that's pointing off the page. Confusing mess, and I have to blame the writer as much as the artist. I don't know if she's that fast, or if she's using magic, or if her rifle, which is relatively new technology at the time the story takes place, is another magic artifact. Whatever the case is, that is the last we see of Annie Oakley, and we follow dock worker Magic Knife Man to the singing lady from the beginning of the book. She's looking much nastier, having tricked the dock worker into obtaining the knife, and she reveals that she is aware of the Goosebumps voice, and reveals the identity, which, if you couldn't have guessed it up until this point, is Jack the Ripper. They say as much on the page. This is both lame and interesting. I have to ask, do you know of any other famous weapons wielded by shady figures who kill women in Victoria-era London? I don't. Which is fine, it's a historical figure known to use a weapon. What is disappointing is making this some sort of grand reveal. It's not particularly clever and shows either a lack of experience from the writer or a lack of imagination. Again, who else that's a bad guy or a notable figure would use a knife in Victoria-era London? The idea wasn't developed enough to make an impact, and that's all that happens in the story. The anti-Annie character isn't memorable aside from being on the cover, and aside from thinking she's better than a historical figure, does nothing to prove it. The design is utterly generic as well. It's a Western-style Matrix long jacket. There's a red necklace, but no big S or red and blue webbing. There's not much to go on. There's a background quest-giving character that features an overly done nose scar that wouldn't be out of place in an anime. Outside of that, there's very little characters in this story. There's more figures that move the story along, as we see with the red shirts in the bar before the climax of the book. The story is small, and it reaches further than the writing is capable of. There's some good ideas here, but there's no lesson learned for the main character, and despite being presumably the hero, she doesn't learn a lesson, either about herself or the world she's in, and neither does the reader. There's no heroics, And perhaps as the state of mind of the writer would indicate, the story is that of the villain. Better stories have been told with less pages, and it's clear that the 48-page standard it goes for was market research rather than that of serving the story. This might be more forgivable if the development and production didn't take as long as it did. The sequel is on the market right now, being offered on Indiegogo, but with being months away and inevitable delays to follow, there's not much to recommend about this comic. It has an interesting setup, and the concept is just fine, if a little an oddball for American comic books. Victorian era London and Jack the Ripper is a different setting than the usual comic, and more capable hands may have been able to print up something interesting. But as it is here, it's a swing and a miss. There's very little to learn, there's no standard heroics, there's no lesson, there's no morality tale. It's the setup to something bigger. While it would be interesting to see if it could get bigger, there's nothing really in this book to keep you there at the moment. Along with that, the politics surrounding the creators of the book are worth noting. To me, it's not surprising at all that the writer thought he was writing a comic book, when in reality he was writing the story of a bad guy. Whatever the main character is supposed to be, and I'm assuming it's the woman by the cover featuring her, it turns into a story more about Jack the Ripper and the new wielder of his knife. If he wanted to tell a story about an anti-hero, that's fine, but that's not what this was promoted. Whoever the character ends up being, if this is her initial outing, it's a disappointing one and doesn't leave much to look forward to by the end of the first issue. There are many questions left, and there's nothing resembling the hero's journey for her. Instead, we're left with a triumphant declaral of the identity of Jack the Ripper to get us excited for the next book. A book which, going by that, is more interested in telling the story of a bad guy rather than the hero on the cover. As a villain to root for, again, this is disappointing for the standard superhero comic, and if it's an attempt at deconstruction or just telling the story of an anti-hero, is probably the biggest problem with the book. I have a feeling that it was not written to be that way, but the writer found more interest in the villain character and the power of the weapon rather than the standard superhero he had set up with the anti-Annie Oakley. While some of this could be excused due to the first-time efforts of a new writer, it's worth noting again that this book came from War Campaign, a group who is contentious at best, and at its worst is a group of people who spend their time on the internet antagonizing people by photoshopping them into ridiculous situations. The book is got the War Campaign logo all over it, so while this portion of the review is not actually a review of the writing or the book itself, it's impossible to separate it from the behavior of its creators. For all the energy and commotion that went into the creation of the book, it's a disappointing product at the very best. Yes, some credit to them for actually putting up, in this case. They did create a comic book. The art is mostly fine, and the presentation and the actual physical quality of the book is just fine. The writing will improve. The art will improve. There's a new artist for the second book, and the production will improve. I am definitely counting on some delays, but it seems like they've learned a lot from producing this book and will inevitably produce a better product all around for the next go. The ideas are interesting in this book, and I look forward to seeing what other weapons could be brought into the story. That being said, I cannot recommend this book. I did not enjoy reading it, and I'm trying my best to be as impartial and considerate of both being a first-time writer and my own history with the War Campaign team. Whether I back Vestige 2 or not, I don't know. At the moment, I have no desire to continue reading the story. I am curious to hear if other people found an improvement, but as it is now, if I never read Vestige 2, I'd be just fine with that, and I think most people out there would feel the same way. It doesn't look like it's going to fund to the amount that the first one did, and with all the drama and extracurricular activities going on with the production team and the loss of Steve as an editor, it would be easy to recommend that most people skip the second entry, and you're not missing anything by not reading the first. That being said, please let me know what you thought of the review. Questions, comments, general tips would be appreciated. This is Mecha McCheese with jalapeno milk, and this was my review of Vestige. Please hit like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and stay tuned for more reviews, pop culture takes, and goings on within the world of indie comics and Comicsgate. Thank you very much.